Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So this is episode 2 in a two-part series. If you missed part 1 and don't want to be coming into this cold, check out the description box. I'll go ahead and leave a link to part 1 of this series. So without further ado, just resuming our scheduled programming already in progress. I am getting a little bit ahead of myself though. Before we shift gears into insulation mode, we're actually going to stay in electrical mode just a little bit longer. So behind the scenes, I've been secretly working on adding real lighting to the loft area immediately above us. Let's go ahead and go up there and look at the current state of things and just do a check-in. So to date, we've just had a couple of strategically placed portable work lights. And if you're trying to go up there in the dark, or frankly, even in the daytime, you plug in an extension cord before you go up the stairs, and that fires up these little portable work lights. So it's going to be just a game changer to have the same type of fixtures that we're using in the spaces below, in the art studio and the woodshop, have those same kind of fixtures up here. Now, nowhere near in the same density. There's going to be a total of 8 fixtures up here, but this isn't a workspace. This is primarily storage. So I feel like the 8 fixtures that we happen to have left are going to be more than plenty to serve that purpose up here. We've got a milestone day happening today with the loft lighting project. Today's the day we actually get to hang the light fixtures, and it's a little chilly today. So as you might imagine, in a big wide open space like this, it doesn't even make sense to run a space heater. I'm lucky that the woodshop is enclosed and that that's feasible down there. But today, it's just a matter of layering up a little bit. Got me a hat on, so. All the fixtures have been prepped. They are ready to go, and my extra muscle should be showing up here very soon. So I'm just kind of trying to get everything organized to make the most of his time when he shows up, so that we can just go bam, bam, bam and get these hung. Now, once again, these light fixtures are reclaimed and repurposed. The way that we're hanging them is nowhere near the way that they were meant or designed to be hung. They are 2 foot across by 4 foot long, and they're meant to fit up in a drop ceiling tile grid. So given that we're just screwing them into some wooden runners, I wanted to come up with a way to, just to kind of keep them looking decent, come up with a way to make them hang straight. So I made a pair of these, and I thought what we would do is just stick these up in the lower of the 2 trusses that we're hanging the light from, so that the bottom edge of the light fixture could rest on this little paddle sticking out. So we'll have one on either side, and that should help us, each of the lights that we mount, to actually keep them square and have them hung straight. So this might look a little weird as we're working our way around the room, that we're fiddling with these chunks of wood. So I wanted to run down for you what this goofball apparatus is for. And then so I've just got 4 holes pre-drilled into each fixture, and as far as screws go, I needed something with a nice, with a good-sized head. So I found these they call them lath screws. Camera doesn't want to focus, but I just wanted to show off that it's a pretty good-sized head, and they seem to work pretty well for hanging these lights. So we got this all completed much earlier in the day, but I came back out to the barn to do something else. So I decided to just climb the steps and admire our accomplishment and be in awe. It's just, we probably went overkill, just to be completely transparent. Just one fixture there and one fixture there would probably have been enough, because here in the forward part of the barn, there's 2 more there and 2 more there. So again, just 1 and 1, a total of 4 fixtures up here, but we did 8. So, because that was how many fixtures we had left. So we got them used up. They're no longer taking up floor space here in the loft. But wow, I can only just imagine what the light output is going to be like. So Yeah, let's get them wired in and lit up. Just as in part 1 of this 2-part video series, we're using these same LED tubes. I went into a fair amount of detail during part 1 as to why I chose them. So if you missed part 1 and you need more info on these, definitely go back and check out our previous video. While it would have been fun to get all of them wired up and prepped and bulbs in them and do a big reveal all at once, I wanted to go ahead and get this first pair wired up just so that I could test all the wiring that I had stubbed out just below me months and months ago that I knew would eventually get extended up here whenever the mood struck me to go ahead and install lighting up here in the loft. So successful test. All the wiring back to the breaker panel, including my wall switches, are good to go. So now just wiring up the last of them and installing the bulbs will be easy peasy. All right, are you ready to see this?
I am so excited.
It is absolutely glorious.
All right.
All right, hit that switch.
All right.
It's like a modern day thing, like an actual switch.
Okay. It's like walking up to heaven or something like
Yeah,
that.
come on up.
All right. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right.
Isn't that insane?
That is insane. But it also shows me how dirty it is up here too.
Well, the good news is it's just storage, right?
It is just storage, but wow. Like, this is amazing. Now you can see the Bowflex that I need to use.
And that I need to use.
And that we need to use, yes.
And so,
Wow.
yeah, I'm not sure if it's overkill or not, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, you know. I mean, it maybe, but it's also like we had these anyway, and if we
Right.
didn't put them up, they would have just been sitting in the corner just getting banged up. So
I figure if we burn out bulbs in our workspaces down below, we'll just come and rob them from here, and it won't be any big impact. But what I was concerned about is these long, dark aisleways, that there's enough light cast that you can actually see all the way over to the back wall. So
oh yeah.
it's even during those, or even in these spots where there's tall shelving, you can see.
I
You
know,
can see.
it's just
And bonus from a couple of these projects, all of the light fixtures that were taking up floor space up here, that's gone.
yes.
And coming up next is the Woodshop insulation project. There was like 4 packages of like, what, 12 bats of insulation, 4-foot insulation in each of those packages. That floor space is freed up because that project is coming up next. For the ceiling insulation here in our maker spaces, we're taking a bit of a departure from the rock wool insulation that we used in the walls. Here we're using regular fiberglass insulation. This is R25, and I'm getting started the day before installation day. I'm opening up all the packages. Each of these bats, you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at it in the package, but each bat is supposed to be like 8 inches thick. So we're opening up all the packages a day ahead of time so it can just have a chance to relax and chill out and expand to its proper thickness before we try to start wedging these up into the ceiling. Now, we've kind of got two different situations with the rafters here in the woodshop. You've got those bays that are wide open, and then you've got bays that are obstructed more or less because there's a light fixture spanning those bays. I'm just going to go ahead and get started with the bays that have light fixtures spanning them. I think those will actually be a little bit easier to do because it's kind of like having another person holding up part of the length of the bat of insulation, fewer staples, etc. So I feel like we'll do the easy stuff first and then move on to what might be a little bit more on the cumbersome side and double back and do those bays that are wide open as sort of a second pass through the room. Now you can see there we've got a little bit of a head start here actually. There was some leftover rock wool from the insulation project of doing the walls, so I went ahead and stuffed it up with the ceiling because why not? Let's use it up. All right, let's do a little tool talk just for a second. So this stapler I'm using, nothing fancy. I've had this for many years. This came from Harbor Freight Tools, probably cost me under 20 bucks. I suppose if I were a contractor doing this kind of thing all day, every day, I would need something beefier. But as a weekend warrior, again, had it for years. Just put a couple drops of oil in it every time I use it, and it just seems to go and go. But it uses these little 1/2-inch staples, which seem to be like just perfect for insulation. I use these staples for other projects as well. But air tools, they'll have a label on it just like this one that says like the range of PSI that it will run with. And my air compressor has an adjustable air regulator on it, so I can dial that in. This one happens to say, you know, between 55 and 95 PSI is what this tool is built to use. Now that's quite a range. As far as choosing what setting is best for whatever you happen to be doing, since I'm just stapling paper, albeit pretty heavy paper, I've been pretty impressed with how tough it is. I was actually trying to tear it once, and it was hard to tear. Anyhow, I just took a piece of notebook paper and doubled it over to kind of roughly simulate the thickness of that paper, and just drove several staples. The very first one had the setting way too high, and the staple just ripped right through the paper. So I kept dialing it back, got to about 62 PSI before I got a staple in there that, of course, was flush to the paper, but not so aggressive that it punched right through. I think I commented on this during part 1 when we were installing baseboard. That when we did this sort of thing over in the art studio, we had the luxury of it being a wide open, empty room. And yeah, here in the woodshop, that's definitely not the case. So some bits of insulation were easier to install than others. And the dust collection system there in the corner, case in point, is one of those things that I definitely didn't want to try to dismantle and move. So like a monkey, I'm climbing over things and climbing on things and maybe using things to stand on that really shouldn't be stood on, but I'm doing it anyway, just to try and get through this and keep the project moving. All right, so we've got a little bit of a rhythm going here. We're making some progress. So on this half of the shop, we're almost at a halfway point. Well, we're at kind of a 2/3 point. I've done everything that I can do with full-length 4-foot-long bats. And for the gap that's left, I actually am at a point where I'm going to need to custom cut some of those bats down to size. So all the insulation that needed to be hung immediately above my assembly table here is actually up. So I went ahead and put the sawhorses back up and threw my fancy piece of plywood back on top of the sawhorses. So great workspace to be able to start cutting down those pieces of insulation. And no major rocket science here about cutting down these pieces. The first one I need to cut is 38 inches long. I'm just using a straight edge here to squish the insulation down so that I can then run a utility knife across. And there's just a piece of sacrificial OSB here that will take the punishment of the utility knife once it pierces through all the thickness of the fiberglass insulation. After this one, there's about 11 more I think I need to custom cut to length. They're all in the neighborhood of 40 inches long. So I'll get these cut and hung, and then we'll start on the other half of the room. You might have noticed I've been in full PPE for this occasion, which you might think is overkill, but let me tell you, the dust that comes off of fiberglass is absolutely nasty. It's nowhere near as innocent as dust. It's actually little bits of glass fibers, hence the name fiberglass. So nope, don't want that in my hair. I've got a hat on, don't want it in my lungs. I've got went all out where face mask is concerned. Don't want it in my eyes. I've got ear pro on. Definitely don't want to get it in my fingers. Man, if you think a wood sliver is nasty, you don't get just one when you get in contact with this stuff. You get 50 of them. Oh, and by the way, they're completely invisible. So forget trying to be able to see it and pick it out with tweezers. It's just gonna run its course. Even the jacket that I've got on, I picked something that's got kind of a slick fabric. So hopefully the fibers are more inclined to slide off, or at least not get embedded like they would in, oh, some of the jackets that I wear out here have kind of a nap to them, like a flannel sort of a material that's got a little bit of a fuzz. So this I feel I can shake out a little bit before I maybe even try to throw it in the washer after I'm done with this project, which I definitely will. So if you've got a fiberglass insulation project coming up, I highly recommend you do not scrimp on PPE. Ask me how I know. So finishing up the other half of the shop with insulation was pretty much a rinse and repeat from what you saw me do in the first half, with one exception. It seemed like some of the spacing of the ceiling trusses was like a little bit further apart, which in turn made it a two-person job to hang the last of this. So I was lucky enough that most of what I was able to do in the first half was I could squish the band of insulation up there, and it would kind of stay long enough for me to dash down the ladder, grab the air stapler, go back up, and then finish, fastening it in place. These were a little bit looser fit, so that turned out to not be an option. So I recruited some help to help me finish up the tail end of this. Grateful for Renee's time and patience with me. It's been a long project, actually, but I'm really happy that it's done. Something else that I learned during that last 25% of the job was, so I've been stapling the little fold out wings to like the bottom of the ceiling trusses. And it turned out, I learned at the tail end, that it's actually easier to staple it to the side of the truss. Not only is it faster, but I think it actually looks better. And the whole looks better thing is kind of an issue. I mean, it's going to be rough and rustic looking no matter what, but unlike the art studio, we're not going to finish it with like a sheetrock or some other refined look to the ceiling. So this is what we get, is the is the insulation. So yeah, having it a little bit neater looking. I wish in retrospect that I had done my homework, frankly, and done it that way for all of the insulation bats, because yeah, it does look a little neater. So then the last thing that I'm probably going to do where the insulation is concerned some other day is the weight of the insulation does sag in the middle, and so it's just kind of hanging on the staples and the paper. maybe it's not a problem. I'm inventing an issue that's not really a thing. But the last thing I want is for all of this work to slowly self-destruct and like tear the paper at the staples. So I'm probably going to staple up some string and like zigzag my way down each one of these bays just to help suspend the middle of those insulation bats, just to kind of help support that weight. But that's some of the day. You get the idea. We got the insulation done in the shop. So grateful. Grateful because, again, now we are just that much closer to being able to focus on working in the shop on projects for in the house, for instance, than working on the shop itself, building it out, getting it ready for that. So I'm really excited about this next phase of what's going to be happening here on the channel and for our home and the things that we want to be able to do. So now, mind you, there are still some shop fixture related projects that are still in the queue, and I do plan to document those projects. But I think I'm going to take a bit of a break from some of that kind of stuff, and I think our next video is going to be focused on building something for in the house. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. Hit the like button, hit the share button if you think somebody else would enjoy the nature of some of the projects that we're doing and the journey that we're on. We'd love to grow this community and have more people to hang out with. So thanks again so much for being a part of what we do here on He Said, She Shed, and we'll see you again real soon. Take good care of each other.